What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Paradise Valley. This is episode 17, and it feels like it's been forever recording an episode. And it probably has been. I think this is my first episode featuring gameplay since I visited Las Vegas back in March. And in looking back at the time lapse, I'm still kind of in awe. Just looking at the empty area and knowing how it's about to be transformed into something just really amazing and incredible. And as of recording this right now, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm sure we'll get there in time. In this episode, I'm starting to work on the Center City area or group of casinos. And this area is one of the more modern upscale resorts on the Strip, featuring different skyscrapers. I think they're like some of the tallest buildings in Las Vegas. It also has a lot of different luxury brand stores, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. The first three buildings that I placed to represent the strip of shops that face the strip, I'm really surprised because these buildings don't change. The Luxurion kind of changes, and I'll get to that in a minute, but for the most part, these buildings remain where they are. And there may be some changes in the future if necessary, so don't hold me to it. This episode also features the Veer Hotel, which of course is a custom asset. I didn't do a lot of walking or exploring when I was in Las Vegas recently, because it was kind of chilly. But when I saw these buildings, I was really inspired by the modern look. They are leaning or veering toward a slight angle, which in modeling this asset made it more of a challenge. I've slowed down the time lapse a bit so that y'all can get more of a closer look at them. What you're seeing on screen is the very first draft of the building, and honestly I could have stopped right there because they look pretty good from in this form. I think it's much too dark in comparison to how they look in real life, but a dark texture like this could work for like a different building in the future. At the end of this episode, you'll see the completely finished version, and it changes multiple times throughout this episode, which you really won't get a chance to see because I didn't spend any time detailing around the actual building. Again, I'm pretty much done, maybe a few minor tweaks here and there, but it should be up within the next couple of days or so. I really think this is one of my best buildings, if not the best building that I've made so far. I spent a lot of time just on the design and working around some of the glass features of the building. There is a lobby surrounded in glass that you can see into, and I'm not 100% satisfied with the detail inside the lobby, but I did have to keep in mind that the majority of the time you won't be able to actually see inside the lobby. So rather than going into a lot of unnecessary details, I just had to keep it light and keep it moving. There's also a rooftop pool, which is just okay by itself, but with all the elements of the building, they just come together to really make an incredible asset. And although the look of it is really modern, I think the size of it, it just makes it real versatile, and I can imagine it being used in resort areas, in downtowns, even suburban office parks that are like on the outside of the city. It kind of reminds me of a modern building that you see in Atlanta or Houston, driving around the perimeter of the city. I'm looking for buildings to represent the Aria Hotel, the Mandarin Hotel, and the Cosmopolitan. One reason I was excited for this particular resort was because there were just so many skyscrapers and glass buildings on the workshop that I would not have to create much custom content. And a lot of the glass buildings that I came across really fit well. Some of the LODs for the towers on the workshop can be a little off at times. I was pretty happy with the buildings that I'm using for the Aria Hotel and had no plans to change it. But one day while I was looking at Google Maps, and then I started laying out textures in Photoshop, that's just usually the way shit gets started. I definitely had no intentions of making this building at all, but you'll see what I came up with at the end of the episode, so definitely stay tuned. A little bit about the future of the series. I want to be able to get a little more organized with creating custom assets and being able to detail in-game. What I would love to be able to do is to be able to spend some time creating the assets that I need and then being able to use those assets to build in-game without a whole lot of stopping and rebuilding and changing buildings out. I know it's really not that practical because when creating a custom building, you have to be able to test it out and plop it in-game. But I do want to be able to have more finished or complete buildings before I start detailing. So the next resort that I'm going to be doing is going to be the season finale. And I probably will have only 1 or 2 more episodes for the city center casinos and maybe 2 episodes for the next resort that I'm doing. So I'm looking at maybe episode 20, 21 to be able to wrap things up. After that, I want to be able to take a little break from detailing and recording videos for Paradise Valley. And I want to be able to catch up and have most, if not all, the assets that I need before I even start to detail a resort. But really, shit changes all the time. I probably won't even follow through with it, but it sounds good. So it's always nice to have a plan though. So what y'all seeing on screen right now is my retexture of the Luxurian Hotel by Vexcarious. If I had to choose, I'd probably say this was my favorite building on the workshop of all time. It's really such a unique building that it doesn't make sense to use it a bunch of times, so there hadn't been a whole lot of opportunity for me to use it. I've always wanted to try out some different textures on the building, and separately and apart from that, I really wanted to create this luxury mall in front of the casinos on the strip. But the shape of that mall is really just so weird, and I really couldn't get a good handle on modeling it just using Google Maps and pictures. Then it just came to me one day to use a retextured Luxurian shopping center as the base for this mall and try to capture some of the same look of that mall with the textures on the Luxurian. Overall, I think it worked out really well. The silver and black combination gives the building a more reserved and subdued look and feeling. And again, a big shout out to Vex because the building itself is just so well designed. My building is actually a completely new model because it's really hard to texture in the way that you're used to doing, using somebody else's model and layout. A lot of texturing has to do with how the model itself is built and how the polygons are laid out and overlap. He uses a 2048 texture on his original model, which I didn't want to use that big of a size. So I ended up having to cut a lot of the polygons, which in the end, it just ended up me making an entirely new model. But I wanted to keep the shape and the dimensions of everything pretty much the same. And I really feel like I was able to do a good job in that department. And I was just able to import my building into the game and use all of his original props and pedestrian paths. I really like the use of the pedestrian paths that he included in the asset because it allows people to walk through the building without having to manually add paths in game. You see here, it really just generates a lot of foot traffic, which is perfect. Hopefully this will be on the workshop by the time you're seeing this video. Since the last video was recorded, the developers announced the new DLC Park Life, which is also another good reason for me to take a break from the series after I complete the next resort. I'm hoping I'll be able to incorporate a lot of those features in the city and to really add a lot of life. And I've been thinking maybe I'll work on a golf course using the park features and being able to connect the different courses directly to the pedestrian paths. And I will have a functioning roller coaster to use when I eventually make it to doing the New York casino. I really think this is going to be the best DLC that they've released. It adds a ton of stuff for both players that like the simulation aspect of the game, as well as people that just like the detail. Like, Green Cities was the DLC that nobody asked for, and everybody was just like, what the hell? And I can't say that it added anything for me personally. Maybe a couple of the grass props, versus Park Life, which incorporates features that nearly everyone has been asking for. Of course, you still got a few complainers, but online the responses have been overwhelmingly positive. Except for the Xbox and console players. They complain on every post, and I hate to sound like an elitist, but Cities Skylines on console really is the red-headed stepchild of the PC version. Colossal Order makes content for the PC version, then later, if possible, Parallax just ports it over to the console version. They really aren't equal versions and really never will be. But speaking of the console version, I have an Xbox product key that I need to give away. So I'm trying to think of ways that I can do that. I guess I'll announce how I'll go about giving it away in the next episode. So y'all go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified whenever I do upload the next video. And watch the entire video for details on how to win, if I have any details by then. Also, hit the like button on this video if you don't have an Xbox One, so that people that do have an Xbox are able to see the video. Right here I'm detailing around the Luxurion, which I renamed Deluxe Plaza Shops, just to give it a more modern and hip sounding name. I'm using some of my tile decals, and of course some curb props. I'm also using Lost Gecko's network walls for the first time, and to be 100% honest, I do not like the way that they function. I think they're really hard to maneuver and to manipulate, and I was just so frustrated with just creating this one shape. But the end result, it looks absolutely incredible, and there's just no way to create something that good looking and smooth in game. But I don't know how much of it I'll be using moving forward. Maybe it just takes a little while to get used to. And speaking of Green Cities, I use a lot of the grass from there in this area. It's really not that good looking up close as far as the texture is concerned, but from a distance it does the job. Here again, I'm really limiting what I'm adding as far as detail, because I'm not sure what I'm gonna add to this corner. I want like a big corner building that fits with the same look and style of the Luxurion. So I may end up using the same texture map to try to come up with something. I'm also trying to tie these pedestrian walkways into the entire area. I still haven't come up with any permanent solution for those yet. Bad Idea has recently released a much smaller pedestrian path with a really incredible bridge for a walkway, and something like that would be perfect. Unfortunately, it's green and has a roof over it, which doesn't make it look very modern, and it just doesn't fit in well with the strip. So I may try to get in touch with him and some more asset creators to see if I can come up with something slightly more modern. Really, the road and network editor is really not intuitive at all, and it's not something that I've really been able to explore on my own. So y'all, we're coming up on the end of this episode. All in all, footage from this episode spans over a month. In the background here, you can see the next tower that I'm including in the series, which will be the last resort that I complete before the update and before I take a break from the series. It's the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino, and I did have an opportunity to visit during my trip there this year. I kind of wanted to change the name of it, and I came up with the Gold Coast Casino since the building is gold and coast is kind of like a body of water, like a bay. But there's a real Gold Coast Casino in Las Vegas, which I've actually played bingo at before. So I didn't want it to have the name of a shitty casino, And speaking of shitty casinos, I had to spend my last night there this year at Excalibur, but the less said about that, the better. In the closing shots, you're getting a good look at my version of the Aria Hotel for the first time. In the next episode, which I haven't started working on, I'm hoping to just be able to tie a lot of the area and the buildings together. I really don't plan on adding a lot of details or anything since most of the area is occupied by buildings. I may eventually end up doing a lobby for the Aria, and I also plan on starting the Cosmopolitan Hotel as well. I recorded the cinematics for this episode at a distance, so you're really able to get a look at the taller buildings. You also get a really good view of the entirety of the city. It's really more of an unfiltered view without all the empty spaces cropped out, so you really get a complete idea of the layout. So y'all, don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this episode, as well as subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate all the love and support I've gotten from everybody, and hopefully I will see all of y'all next time.